Welcome to the Better Two podcast. I'm your host, Donna. Today's guest is Pete Holmström from the Dandy Warhols. Pete and I have an interesting conversation about the Dandies, but we also talk about his other projects and, well, his biggest passion, which is music. So tune in. Hi, Pete. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Just
Pretty
hanging out.
hanging out with all your guitars.
Yeah, it's trying to make some progress on various different projects.
Well,
So
that's what looking at your stuff, it was kind of like, your solo stuff besides with the Dandies. It's like looking at your solo stuff, it's like if you go to your Instagram, your life is music, and music is your life, it seems.
yeah, it has become that way. Um, I have a hard time saying no to projects with people that I want to work with. So there's a number of those going on, even bubbling in the background that um, it's endless. Um, and I'd probably say yes to more, even though I can barely handle the ones I've got.
But if it fulfills you, I mean, that's the thing about if you're doing something you're passionate about and something you love, and yes, if you get to work with people that you really, really want to work with, there's
Yeah,
such a gift in that.
absolutely. And I find that I explored different territory, like musically, with different people um, that I wouldn't with say with the Dandies. There's the Dandies seem to do a thing. I have a role within it. I try and push the boundaries a bit, but I it doesn't. I don't know. It keeps coming back to being kind of the same thing. Um, and so I need to go elsewhere to find I don't know, inspiration and just excitement about music and art and all that stuff.
But doesn't it make it better when you come back after having these outside experiences? it it doesn't it give it a different perspective, especially if you're in the studio or even playing live, because you're working within a different unit. And while it may be the same, now you've had something else to add to it. Maybe you've changed up a riff somewhere or learned a different riff, and you can
Yeah,
now incorporate that.
yeah, absolutely. That it always brings. I mean, even it brings something back, no matter what. Even if it's just more interest in music, a continued interest in it. I don't um, find that one little thing that changes. I don't know how you play and makes everything exciting again.
Well, speaking of excitement, were you in the studio when was Slash there in studio with you guys, or did he like send in the part that he played on?
Yeah,
And
these days that I don't think that really happens very often. Um, we got sent tracks.
yeah,
Where I didn't get to be in the studio with Debbie Harry either, which uh, is a big disappointment.
yeah.
Um, I'm honored to have her on the track. Of course, would have loved to have been there. Still haven't met her, um, but one day.
But that, I mean, that's the thing. It's like technology is great because it affords us the opportunity to do this, but in the same breath, it's like, yeah, you can't be there and watch them
Yeah,
take and
yeah,
create from your piece or add to your piece.
yeah. It works both ways. It's been fantastic, and I mean, honestly, it's like I couldn't do all my projects without the technology. You know, so many of them like involve people in different parts of the world, and um, yeah, and just the equipment that everybody has access to now to make music. It's phenomenal. Certainly couldn't have done that if I'd been having to pay $500 an hour for a studio time somewhere.
This is true. I mean, now you have the ability to create it wherever you don't have to all be there, and it can be produced in somebody's living room.
Oh, anywhere.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, Tone Loc was evolutionary because everybody's like, oh, he produced that track in his closet. But now, I mean, if somebody wants to do that in their closet, I think the first couple episodes, or one episode or two episodes I taped in my podcast, I did it in the closet because of the
Yeah,
acoustics. So,
sure. Yeah. I'm sure I've recorded, well, I know that I've recorded things in closets because of acoustics.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, when did you decide that I'm gonna be a guitar player? Was this something when you were younger, like in, elementary school, or was it always something you just gravitated toward?
My dad brought home a classical guitar when I was, I think, in second grade or something. And our neighbor was a highly respected guitar builder. And my dad had asked, and said, "Here's $100. Go, can you please find me something decent?" And so he did. And my dad learned a few things and taught them to me. So I always had that kind of, I always, knew I could play a few things. And I had a couple lessons a few years later, and then kind of didn't play guitar at all for years until high school, maybe eighth grade, high school, somewhere in there. And then just sort of dabbled with it and had a high school band that barely did anything. And then it wasn't really until the Dandies happened that it became serious.
Well, and I mean, I didn't have a high school band. I had a slightly after high school band, and it's always one of those things where it's like you have this ambition that you're going to do it. But I think when you were in high school, most of the time we don't recognize everything that goes into creating the band, the gigs,
Yeah.
all of that.
Oh
And
yeah.
when you start wrapping your mind around it, it's like, is this something I really, really want to do?
Uh, I mean, honestly, when we started the Dandies, I didn't know anything. It's um, like booking shows, writing songs, any of that stuff. It was all brand new. I barely knew how to plug my equipment in. I plugged it in wrong for the first show.
Whoops.
Yeah, that was fun. Um, but yeah, I mean, the amount of stuff that goes into keeping a band going, let alone even starting one, it's amazing how many bands there are.
And how many bands survive in the longevity? I mean, when you look at somebody like the Stones, I mean, how long have they been together and how many personality conflicts have they had that we don't know about, but yet they still continue to
Yeah,
go?
yeah. I mean, there's something that happens, with us when we're on stage that I can't really explain, but I haven't experienced that in any other band, and I'm sure it's the same for Mick and Keith. It's like they get together and it happens, and they're taken back to, I don't know, the mid '60s, and they just have that feeling that's amazing and don't want it to go away. Want to keep doing it.
No, and I
Certainly
mean,
don't need the money.
no, no,
It's not
no,
about that. I don't think it's been about that for decades.
no. And I mean, some of the things that Mick has done by himself, like, working with Bowie and just other projects and getting into acting, he learned how to parlay a lot of the stuff and he had the gossip columns with the people he married and he built a whole name for himself,
Sure. Yeah.
past being a singer. And I think you're right. I think that's part of the reason I think some bands are successful and other bands aren't because there is that chemistry within the band.
Hmm.
And sure,
Yeah.
there are some people that can leave a band, but when that chemistry leaves that band, then that's when things don't work anymore.
Yeah. It definitely seems like it. There's I mean there's differences, between a band and a front person.
Mhm.
Um, that seems a bit lonely, but maybe not. I don't know. I don't have that sort of ego that would ever want to be the front, like to ever not want to collaborate, you know.
Yeah.
That's
I think collaboration, going back to stepping out and then coming back, collaboration is basically the master of creativity. Sure, you can create something by yourself, but it's going to be enriched with collaboration. You know, yes,
Yeah,
you can play guitar solo by yourself. It's a beautiful piece, but when you add drums or you add keyboards or vocals to it, it's going to enrich
yeah.
it and make it grow.
Yeah, I find that I have to have other people involved with my, even with my, with Pete International Airport, um, just because otherwise I wouldn't listen to it. It wouldn't
Uh-huh.
be interesting to me. It'd be like, there's that, I did that. That's not very exciting. Like I don't know what, the various people that sing on my records, that, they write their lyrics. I don't know what went into them creating that. And
Right.
that will always be interesting.
Do you ever sit down with the person after they've written their lyrics, after you put it all together and say, okay, so what has inspired this?
I I've asked a couple times, and it's the answer's vague. It's the same, like it's essentially the same as if somebody asked me why I wrote a particular piece of music or what inspired it. There might be a vague little seed, but I can't explain it. And it just seems like they can't either. And it's ultimately not that interesting. It's more interesting to imagine what it's about,
True.
and to our, just whatever it means to you is more interesting, you know.
Well, this is true. But I mean, when you listen to some lyrics are very blatant about, dancing with myself. When you look at that, considering the climate that we're in this country, I can see where that song comes from without
Mm,
really coming, blatantly stating something. I can see
yeah,
where the basis for the lyrics came from.
yes.
But and that's the sad thing now. It's like we could talk more about that, but then there is the component of, if you do, then you're stepping into dangerous territory because you never know what might come if you speak out, which is scary.
Yeah, yeah, very
Which
true now.
I know you're about to tour the States. By the time this airs, because it'll air later, you guys will
Mhm.
be in Europe. Are you guys going to come back and tour again in the States, or are you going to go do something else outside of the Dandies?
We've got, I think there's going to be another tour in the US announced pretty soon.
Okay.
Um, and beyond that, I've got, a few other things outside of the Dandies happening, but there's not much else going on this year.
And you do play bass for Sun Adams,
I
correct?
do, yes. Uh-huh.
What made you decide to do that?
Well, I've played bass in a few other things over the years. I played bass on my own stuff. I've played some bass for the Dandies. Um, and during the pandemic, when I was helping my friend Jason Adams do his solo record, which turned into the first Sun Adams record, um, I played guitar, bass, keyboards, did some drum programming, did a little bits of everything. And then he wanted to put a band together, and I had no interest in being the guitar player in another band, and just wanted to play bass. So it was purely, I don't know, selfish, because I want to get better at it, and um, yeah, it was just more interesting to me.
Well, for
I need to
somebody,
start another band and be the keyboard player, and then
there
I'll
you go. And
learn
wait,
how to play keyboards.
but then I have to ask, is there drumming, is there drums involved in another project somewhere for you?
Uh, I'm, I think it's too late for me to learn how to play
Oh,
drums.
it's never too late to learn things, you can always learn
I
something.
I know I've sat down at a kit a couple times and tried, and the it's just embarrassing. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't think I could get good enough that I would be comfortable doing that in front of anybody.
understand.
Um, yeah, I don't have that separation that that you need as a drummer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's a lot more complicated than playing a bass or a guitar, and
Yeah,
so
and
let me go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was just, I spent so long like it's guitar and bass like very similar.
Hmm.
I knew enough. Knowing what I knew on guitar, it was easy to switch over to bass. And I spent decades just playing the guitar, so I have a good understanding of how it works. Um, yeah, so that made perfect sense.
And keyboard can kind of translate over to with the guitar because you basically know all the musical scales, you know how to create a melody, so that can translate. Drumming, while you can play bass, it's a totally different beast.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, being the lover of music, and I understand you worked on somebody's, you worked on the Adams record during the pandemic. What was it like when, the pandemic happened? It's like I know you tour, and I know it seems like you're constantly busy. What was that like for you to have to be in lockdown?
Well, it actually kind of happened at the perfect time for me. Like emotionally, I was ready to just uh, kind of ignore the world and just try and create music constantly. I had been helping a friend with his guitar shop for 5 years previous to that, and I was ready to just tell him, nope, can't do that anymore. I've got to just do music. Um, and so yeah, I set up a routine for myself and would get up, make coffee, come down here, just start working on stuff and go back upstairs, eat something, come right back down. And I stuck to it for months and months before the world started to seep in.
Well, and
And
go ahead.
it's like I had a couple like outside things. Like I would go down to the Dandy studio once a week and work with Courtney. Um, Jason would come over and we'd do the Sun Adams record like one day a week, and another friend came over and we did his record. But it was amazing. I am still sort of riding the wave of that creativity that happened during that time. Um, it's nice to have. It was nice to have a lot of the distractions just cut out.
Yeah.
And I was like smart enough to realize that I needed the schedule to stick to some sort of um, structure, because otherwise, I don't know, it would have been easy to spiral, into some non-productive thinking.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I hate to say it was, and I don't mean it's going to come out weird, but it was kind of set up that way because if you turned on the news, that's all it was. That was all
Yeah,
it was, and it messed with your head. So you had to find, and I'm happy you did. You had to find something to be creative and hopeful about. Even if
yeah,
you're writing dark music, you still had something to be creative and passionate about. And during that time, it wasn't the easiest. And we're kind of going through that in a different sort of way now that we have to find something to have hope in.
yeah. I haven't been able to wall off the outside world in the same way lately.
Understand.
Yeah, I need some help with that.
Well, I think now it's not so easy because, before, well, what were you really missing? Everything, unless you were going to the grocery store or something, what was really available for you to go? And if you got on the road, it was like watching, something out of a zombie movie because there wasn't much traffic on the road.
Yeah.
So it was a bizarre time, and I don't know. I think it's very hard for us to detach now and unplug and just step back and not get sucked into whatever is out there on social media or whatever feeding us.
Yep. Not
So
fun.
when do you guys leave for the road? for Europe?
We're doing the East Coast
Right,
first,
right.
so that's coming up in couple weeks or at the end of the month.
Hmm.
So, um, and then we'll be in Europe all of July, which is really cool. Going to like I think three countries I've never been to before, which is
Nice.
crazy.
Have you guys
Uh,
allotted some time for you to go look around while you're there?
nah, it doesn't work that
I know
way.
it doesn't work that way. I know it doesn't work that way. You guys hit the ground, you land, or you drive. The bus comes in. You either sleep on the bus, you hit the hotel, you play the venue, then you go again. I understand that.
Yeah, it's unfortunately every day we're not playing a show, we're losing money.
Yeah.
So, and touring has gotten more expensive. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I've heard even playing clubs out in LA, it's kind of that situation where you have to have the seats. You have to have those tickets sold, otherwise you're not playing a club.
I haven't, I haven't experienced that. But I know it's hard to get people out.
Yeah. I have been to Portland before, and I went to the Crystal Ballroom, and that was back in early 2000s to
Mhm.
see James Angel because I don't live near Portland.
Ah,
That's the only time I ever
okay.
went to Portland.
Wow.
And my friend worked for the airline. She's like, "Let's go." I'm like, "Okay." So we went, and it's a lovely venue. And
Yeah.
Portland was a lovely town, but we were only there for the weekend. So kind of like you, we landed, we saw what we had to see, we went to a couple places, and we left.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my travel life for the last like 30 years. But we keep going back to the same places. So like my understanding of different cities has grown a bit.
Hmm. Do you think you'll ever just say, "Okay, I'm gonna quit playing music," or is it in your blood and it's always gonna be in your blood, and you think you'll be playing to the?
You know, like there's that first day of tour that involves planes and
Hmm.
hauling gear and stuff
Hmm.
that I dread. And once that's done, I'm happy. But it it gets to me where I'm like I don't want to leave the house. It doesn't matter how little equipment I'm carrying. I'm just like I don't want to go. But as soon as I'm there, I don't want to come home. So. I love it. I absolutely love it, and I hope I can keep doing it for forever. Because it, yeah, it's sort of what makes me feel right
Hmm.
um, in the world. So
Well, it's when, like I said, when it's your passion. If you gave up your passion, then what is there?
yeah, I mean, studio stuff's fun, but it's it's not the same.
No, when you're on stage, you get this energy from the crowd. You get this energy
Yeah,
and this vibe, and when they're into it, you know it, and you're feeding off of them just as much as they're feeding off of you.
absolutely.
And in the studio, while you may have somebody saying, "Yeah, that's great, that's good," that's one person, and it's not the same. And when you take that new music and you then translate it to playing it on stage, that's when the real, I don't want to say high, but high comes from, because now your piece of work that you've created is being shared and you can see the reaction. It's not like, yeah, it's great releasing a CD or downloads, but no, you don't know what their real reaction is.
No, and everybody's attention is so short these days that even if you have a massive hit, it seems to just go gone.
Mhm.
So it's yeah,
But even that being said, you have to applaud you and the Dandy Warhols for sticking around for as long as you have, because yeah, bands will come and go nowadays because the attention span, like you said, is not there. So you kind of came into this at the right time before everything just kind of went.
hmm we definitely we got lucky with their our timing as far as getting in on the kind of the end of the major label sort of control thing. We got to experience that, got to experience them kind of falling apart, and somehow we're still here.
Well, and when you think about it, it's like, okay, so you had the major labels and they would put all this money behind promoting you and doing this other stuff for you. And now I've talked to artists that are newer and it's like they have to do their own stuff. They have to promote themselves a lot harder than, what you guys had to do at the time. And then I don't know that there's such the glamour that there used to be or prestige about being in a band and a rock star and
No, but everybody still wants, or so many people still want to do it.
Mhm.
So
But it
I don't know. It was, it was never really that for me that was interesting. It was, I always just wanted to play music. I never expected any sort of success. Um, Looking back, it's shocking that we even got signed to a major label. Like we never fit anywhere. It's like, it's like there was moments where there was whatever people caught on, like that we did the right song at the right time, but it we just did not fit on Capitol. We did not fit on the English label ever. Um, it would have made more sense if we were on an indie label the whole time or doing our own thing, but whatever. It very happy that they took the chance.
Well, and that's the thing, right place, right time, and them taking a chance offered you a career where
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
and the thing is, and you know this, just because you get a record deal doesn't mean you're going to get a career out of it.
No, huh? The I mean, yeah, absolutely. There's no way. Um, there was some statistic going around ages ago that's like I'm gonna get it all wrong, but it's like 10% of all bands got signed to a major label, and then 1% of those got to make a second record on that major label.
Yeah.
I don't know if those numbers are true or whatever, but it's small percentage, even smaller
Mm-hmm.
percentage. Um, so yeah, we had like the fact that we did 4, 5 records, can't remember. Yeah, amazing.
But that's the thing. Nowadays, you don't see there's the give and take because nowadays, while you have to promote yourself more, you also don't have to worry about the gatekeepers. You get to put yourself out there, you get to put your music out there. You don't have the gatekeeper saying, "This isn't a single."
Yeah. Um, I don't know that's necessarily a bad thing.
True.
It wasn't as much of a bad thing. Um, in those times where the record label execs were unsure of themselves. Like, the whole grunge thing, that happened and there was an influx of interesting music. Because the execs got caught by surprise. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think there's no surprise anymore, which
No,
is a bit disappointing. Um, Nothing can bubble under long enough to turn into something on its own.
no, no. I mean, everything, and I think everything that has blown up, there's certain reasons why it's blown up because of the audience, because of it being slapped on a video for TikTok, because it's become a dance
Right.
trend or whatever. And I think that's how you're getting the bigger hits. But is it, and the only reason a lot of record companies now are signing people, from what I've heard, is because they've gotten those big numbers, those big followers on social media.
Right.
But can they produce more than one song?
I imagine that that's the same as it used to be.
True.
That's the same risk that they were taking.
I don't know. I don't know that they invest as much though as they used to.
I doubt it. Knowing how much money they threw at us,
Yeah.
um, it's yeah.
So
But
out of all,
I don't think anybody spends the amount of money that got spent on some of the videos we made, and I don't think that happens.
well, and now with now with the use of AI in videos and stuff, it's cheaper to make a video that way, is it not, than recording a regular video?
I believe so.
But hey, you can
And
record your video on your iPhone if you want, I mean,
I I mean it's the same thing, with all the music technology being at everybody's hands. It's like
mhm,
all the video stuff is too. You Therefore there is more content, but it's harder to get noticed.
mhm.
Um, and I don't know. I stay away from all things video because I don't want more chores.
Well,
Um, but it's certainly interesting. Um,
it's kind of like when you were talking about the fact that when you record your own music, you want other people to hear you want to work with other people so they hear it. And the thought that came to mind was shouting into the void.
yeah,
And that is one thing with social media and everything. It's like it is shouting into the void. You don't know who's going to hear you. You don't know what's going to be caught. And all of a sudden something may blow up for whatever reason, for the wrong reason. But
yeah,
it's just very surreal because it's like you're shouting into a void. And you just got to wonder, is it actually going to be heard? So when you're doing your music, that's what I picked up on. It's like you create this, but it kind of feels like you're shouting into a void
yeah.
until you get this
Which
other
I mean,
piece.
ultimately means you have to create for yourself,
Hmm.
and that's
So,
it.
so out of all your guitars back there, what is your favorite one?
I don't know. Um, it's changes daily. I did an interview for the Dandy's 30th anniversary, so I have like some of my old original guitars up back there. Um, but I've been playing guitars built by this guy named Saul Cole, and I absolutely love them. So they're that's I'd say my favorite at the moment, and has been for about 5 years now. So
So 30, is this going to be a documentary? This 30 years, this interview
I
you did?
think it's something for Oregon Public Broadcasting. I don't know. Never completely sure of what's going on in
You
that.
just kind of show up, do what you got to do, and
Exactly. Yeah.
but you're a rock star.
Eh, that's a weird term. It
It
got
is.
it got co-opted decades ago and doesn't mean the same thing.
No, 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 because when I looked at, and I understand like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. When I think of rock and roll, I think of rock and roll. And no offense to Miss Dolly Parton at all, but she's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I'm like, shouldn't this just be like the Music Hall of Fame and not the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I know there's a lot of politics to get into that, which people don't think about, but there's a lot of politics, and we all know that. The ones that. So, would you ever want to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Well, it would mean that there was a certain level of success that happened. So, yeah, absolutely. Because a little more successes would be nice.
Yes. Yes.
Um, I like what I'm doing. That would mean that people also liked what I was doing. So, yeah.
So, are you going to be going back into the studio with the Dandies?
We have been working on a record for a few months now. Um, we're Brent's going to be in town for rehearsals before the tour, so we are going to try and do a bunch of recording with him. If everything goes right, we're going to finish a record by the end of the month. Um, but nothing ever goes as
Right.
planned, so I have doubts that that will happen. But yeah, we'll make a bunch of progress, and hopefully have something wrapped up by the end of the year.
It's most likely a new record next year, then.
Eh, yeah, I mean that's the plan. We don't want to wait 5 years between records like it's been going on previous to that. So
You lose some momentum, I think, when especially now, and like we were talking about in today's culture, you can hit something and then be gone just as quick.
Yeah.
So, and I know you guys have a fan base, so it's not like you're going to disappear, but it's also good to keep playing on that momentum.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I I thought the last record was much stronger than a few of the previous ones, or at least more focused. No. Um, and I'm hoping this one's gonna be that way too. Um, we'll see.
On your Instagram, you have a picture of a little pup. Is that your puppy or is that somebody else's?
Oh, on my Instagram?
Yeah, there's a picture of you get this cassette before the French fry gets it.
Oh, that what?
Yeah,
Wait,
y-
on the Dandies or my personal
your
one?
personal one.
Who did that?
I don't remember. I just was perusing and I happened to run across it. But obviously, it's not your puppy.
Oh, I think that must be oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's the guy that owns the label that puts out all the PIA
Okay.
sign items. Except he has a little critter called French fry
Ah,
and another one called Panda and yeah.
I didn't
I
think it
don't
would.
I don't have any pets. I have plants because they can survive a little bit better when I go away.
Well, I didn't want to assume that it was yours because yeah, being on the road, it would be hard to have animals
Yeah.
because you're not there. Um, so what do you do besides play music in your free time? Play music?
Um, I yeah, play a lot of music. I've I have a lot of house plants and a garden that has to be taken care of. Um,
Is
I like
this
to cook.
is this part of that prepping thing that your lead singer was talking about in the Independent magazine, or is this just because it's a fun hobby that you like to do?
It's just stuff that grew up with. My mom's always had plants, and I I like them.
And you
Apparently, I used to, as a kid, point out the ones you could eat on
nice,
walks in the forest. To yeah,
nice. And you
uh-huh.
said you like to cook too?
Yeah, uh-huh. Not fancy stuff. I just enjoy cooking. Um, it's kind of the same way as music. It's just, throw in different things and see what happens.
Yeah,
Um,
I got into making sourdough this year, and it was kind of like, okay, what are you doing? But yeah, that's a whole process in itself because you have to feed it every day at the same time, and yeah, it's a whole thing. But cooking can be fun. What kind of, is it just something random? Do you have a nationality you like to cook in?
tends to be Indian
Okay.
more than anything. Um, I've been vegan for 6, 7 years now, so that's just easier, I
Hmm.
guess. Lots of garbanzo beans and lentils and vegetables. So yeah.
If there's one place you could actually visit that you haven't visited, where would it be?
Japan.
And you haven't been there, huh?
I have been there for a day,
Okay.
on the way to somewhere else, and that's it. So um, I've been fascinated with that country for, I don't know, pretty much as long as I can remember, and it's very strange that I haven't been there.
I'm thinking that you would be so inspired being there. I just have this feeling that it would be such a vibe check for you that it would be so inspirational and just zen-like for you.
Yeah. My parents took a trip there a few years ago, and it, they did this really cool walk, I think from Kyoto to somewhere else. And they stopped and stayed at different monasteries, I think. It
Mhm.
was, um, it was my dad's photographs were just phenomenal. I'd like to go do that
So
as
maybe
well as. as well as go shopping.
So maybe what you need to do is take maybe a 2-week break from all your other projects
Uh,
and go find your Zen moment. Because I think honestly, I really do feel that this would be like place where your heart would be. I know that sounds crazy, but it would be very inspiring for you.
yeah,
I don't know why. It seems to the flow of the energy there would be good for you. It really would.
I I I think the same thing.
So then why don't you do it?
Um, I don't know. Um, because there's always a project that needs taken care of.
But here's the thing. Maybe that project that needs to be taken care of is this trip for you.
I yeah, I honestly I think you're right. At some point, I need to take some time for myself and do exactly that.
Because kind of think about it. It's like get to that moment where you were during lockdown. Yes, you were working on projects, but take the other projects out and think about the peace you had, and then
Mhm.
think, hey, if I went over there and just detoxed and just relaxed, and I mean detox from the outside world,
Yes.
you could have some inner peace.
Yeah. I think we all need that.
Yeah, yeah, we do. Yes, we do. So, are you? I know you're going to be touring most of the summer. Are you going to be doing any other projects this summer besides the Dandies?
Uh, Sun Adams is doing some shows. We're gonna do a little East Coast run um, in the end of June, um, and then we have a couple little festivals in August and September. Um, Besides that, I'm hoping not. Like, be nice to, I don't know, go on some hikes and stuff. Get out
I
of the base.
yeah. I mean, nobody thinks about when they think about being a musician, nobody thinks about the fact that when you are on the road, it is grueling. It is, you have to show up, you have to be at the gig, you have to maybe do some interviews. You are constantly going. And there's a certain time, I mean, I hate to say it, we're all getting older. So
Mm,
your body handles touring differently now, I'm sure, than it used to.
hmm. Yeah, I don't sleep in the tour bus as well as I used to. That used to be like they used to just rock me to sleep.
Hmm.
The drone of the engine or whatever just instantly to sleep. Now it's like not so much. I
But
still
that's,
like I still like everything else about it. There's stuff that has to be done, but um, there's also so much that you don't have to think about. So it is a vacation of a sort. Um, you don't have to think about taking the trash out. You don't have to worry about anything. Usually the home stuff, like just kind of, I don't know, block everything up and hope for the best and turn that part of your brain off.
and make sure you have a good security system so nobody comes in and violates your property.
Exactly.
But
That I have.
and I mean that's the thing. So when you're on the road, it is a total detachment of the mundane
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
it's a different process. You don't have, like you said, no, there's no trash to worry about. Everything else is taken care of for you. You don't have to worry.
Yeah. There's a, a day sheet that shows up that tells you what has to happen that day. Generally, if there's an interview, there's one,
Hmm.
and then there's sound check, show,
Yep.
and you have to find food somewhere in there. That's about your only real responsibility.
So hard.
A lot of time that's taken care of for you. Like you'll be fed by the venue. Then you don't have to think about anything.
No, except to make sure you're up, ready to go, and that's it. And then, well, there's wake up calls for making sure you're up and ready to go. So, plus a tour manager knocking on the door if worst case
Yeah,
scenario.
but you like there's somebody that does that for you. You know?
Hmm. The tough life of a rock and roller. Yeah.
I
So,
mean, you never get enough sleep, and sometimes it is hard to find food, but generally
well,
pretty
that,
good.
I mean, that's one thing you know, I've only played, not, I haven't played, but maybe a couple of gigs. And I do know that even just working a normal job in high school, when I would get off my job and it would be midnight, I would be so amped up that I couldn't go to sleep right away. And I know being on stage, and even if you gave it your all, you are still amped up because you just had
Oh
this
yeah,
massive surge and you played the show. And uh, so you have to wind down.
yeah,
And that cuts into your
oh yeah.
sleep because how are you going to get enough sleep if you got to be on the road by 7 o'clock in the morning? And
Mhm. Oh yeah. It's a constant like struggle. Stay up, go to bed.
but when you're
Yeah.
in your 20s, that's an easy thing to do.
Oh
When you're in your 50s, your body is a little non-forgiving about lack of sleep.
yeah. Yeah, it definitely catches up with you quite fast.
Hmm. So, is there anything that we really haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, kind of gone over all the projects and yeah.
Or are you going to be releasing any more for your own personal stuff? The air traffic controller?
Absolutely. I don't know, middle of making a record. I don't know. I don't know where in the process I am. I'm starting to reach out to different people to sing on certain tracks, um, which is always uh, it's difficult because there's so much doubt, self-doubt involved. It's painful. Um, but I get over it and then send things off and then worry about people's responding or not responding.
But
Um, but I like the songs, um, and there's yeah, it's a good bunch. I always wonder if it's going to be better than the last one. Um, we'll see. They
but
seem to be.
it's funny somebody of your stature who has been in the industry for 30 years, you're basically speaking like you have imposter syndrome when it comes to your own personal music.
Of course.
Well,
But I
why?
mean, it's part for me. It seems like it's if I could figure out a way not to go through that, it'd be great. But that seems to be part of the process
Okay.
is doubting that what you've done is any good, um, and then kind of put it away for a while, come back to it, and go, is it good now? Nope. And just until it's the right time. I don't know. It's a weird process, and I do it with everything.
So you were
there's there's aspects of it always that I know are good, but have I done the right thing? Have I put the right melodies on top of the chords, or it's like is the chorus in the right spot? It's like all that stuff. And then, is I've sent things to people to sing on too early where they can't hear what I hear. And then that it comes back with a no, I don't want to work on that generally. Um, when I know it's done, then I get the right response. But I have to go through these very painful moments of self doubt, um, before that seems to happen.
I mean, and I'm not busting your chops on that because I get it because I was working on my first book for 30 years. And that book will never see the light of day because yeah, I rewrote and rewrote and rewrote. I've written
Yeah,
other books and put other books out, but even those I've pulled back now and I'm like, well, they could be written better.
yeah. I there's I do that with all the songs and records. Yes, there's things that could have been better, um, but it's fine. I also like with a lot of stuff, I just won't listen to it again because I don't need to.
Understand? It's like I won't go back and read the book I was working on when I was in high school. There's no way I'm going to read that. That's like no, no, no. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
What is your favorite venue to play? Out of all the venues you've played, what is one of the
Oh,
favorites?
wow. Um, uh, see the Paradiso in Amsterdam, uh, the Olympia in Paris. I like the Forum in London a lot. Um, the Roundhouse is cool looking and beautiful, but the sound is a little difficult. Same with Brixton, but I like the Forum because it sounds good and looks good. Um, I don't know. There's literally places everywhere.
Oh, I'm sure.
Um, but yeah, I don't
Do you prefer playing festivals or just standard gigs?
I enjoy playing at festivals. Not necessarily for the playing part. That's fun, but it's never, there's no way to make it perfect.
Right,
Like it is what it is, no matter what, if even if you get a sound check, it's just kind of you get out there and just go.
right,
Whereas your own show, it's like there's a little more control, not complete control by any sense of the word, but more control, so you can kind of dial things in a little bit better. Um, but for festivals, it's always the hangout.
I kind of
Who's
figured.
who's there? It's summer camp for bands. You know,
Yeah,
it's like there's always somebody from some other band or some other crew member or something that you've seen before. So it's yeah,
and maybe even
cool.
somebody you wanted to meet that you never got to meet.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, yeah, we don't play enough of those for my taste, just because I miss that aspect.
I know exactly what you mean though, because yeah, I did go to Live Aid. I was in Live Aid at Philadelphia,
Oh,
and I watched how once London shut down, how they got those acts on the stage, rotated the stage, got them going, rotated the stage, got them going, and Led Zeppelin. If you look at the DVD, Led Zeppelin's performance is pretty much cut out because they hated the way they sounded.
yeah,
And I don't really remember Led Zeppelin because I was pushed in the crowd. But, so I can't tell you how they sounded. And when you're there, and that's the thing about it. When you're at a gig, when you're at a festival in the crowd, it could be the crappiest sounding show, and you're not going to know because you are in that energy.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the I mean, we notice it all the time just because we'll have hit or miss shows and the audience has no clue.
Mm-mm.
They they barely ever know when you screw up quite badly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of learned that that's you know that there's a part of the show which is for me and it's definitely my playing things right
Mm-hmm.
is important for my for an overall good experience. Um, that has nothing to do with a good show for the audience.
No.
Absolutely. We can all have a terrible show on stage and the audience will have a great time.
Mm-hmm.
And listening back, it'll sound great, but it's just one weird little vibe things.
Well, there's a band that their bass player screwed up. It was at a festival show, and their bass player screwed up. He walked off stage to get his guitar fixed. Came back on stage, got booed. When he walked off, came back, guitar screwed up again, got booed. The lead singer and the guitarist played a song, and he finally came back on stage. The reason I'm saying this though is now if you go back and you look up this show, no one even mentions that. They all talk about how wonderful of a show it was. That is not even mentioned. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting that that was just like totally forgot.
Yeah,
So I think the audience, for the most part, unless you don't come back, I think for the most part they're forgiving because they're there
yeah,
for you to enjoy the music and enjoy the vibe and just seeing you guys.
Absolutely.
And you got to realize that's the gift that you give.
Yeah. My project was on Peter National was on tour with Black Rebel back in 2019, I think, maybe 2018. Um, and Pete's, their guitar player's guitar rig just went down to he has like 4 or 5 amps on stage, went down to 1 amp. So he had a terrible show,
God,
but he was so pissed off that the energy coming from him made up for all of that. It was one of my favorite shows I've seen of them.
really.
And he hated it. It was so good.
Isn't it weird though the perception that, he's actually in total turmoil, but you're thinking, gosh, this is a great show.
Yeah.
Perception is everything. So,
And then of course, I guess I sort of need to remind myself of that a little bit more often on stage. Be a little more forgiving.
I think just as humans, we need to be forgiving of ourselves, but we are so trapped in trying to make everything perfect.
Hmm.
And the thing is, it's never going to
But
be
part of that
perfect.
is like part of that striving for perfection or whatever personal perfection uh, is what is involved in creating.
Mhm.
So,
But I guess my point is, you can't. We get to a point where if you get trapped in the perfectionism loop, then you almost become abusive to yourself.
yeah.
That's and I'm not saying so much you or myself, but there are people that will use a painting, for example. They'll overpaint, overpaint, overpaint because they're trying to get it perfect, and then they'll just trash it and just be disgusted with themselves and abusive with themselves because of that. And that's where you have to kind of go, you can always start over again. You don't have to beat yourself up. And I know that's not easy.
Yeah, we're
Trust me.
trying.
I know it's not easy. As I tell people a lot, I give great advice. I just don't always take it.
Uh-huh.
Not always. So, if there's nothing else, you're going to be on tour. Hopefully, by the time this comes out, because and normally I wouldn't say this, but this will be the July 4th episode of the show.
Oh wow. Okay.
So by then, hopefully the U.S. tour will be announced, and you'll be back over here shortly after this, and
Yeah.
all will be right. So I thank
Awesome.
you, Pete, for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
So I told Pete before we got off air that, it's obvious that music is his life and life is music for him. And there's nothing wrong with that. And when you can find your passion and you have that creative drive to constantly create something and want to build on it, and, you know, it feeds you. It's your passion, it's your desire. It allows you to just see things grow, see things mature. And that is something that so many of us don't always have that gift or that ability to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take care of this. We have to find those times in our life to find what fills us up with joy. And so often now I have been, I've had the luck of having people that talk about their creative passion. And when we always talk about passion, especially in the romance field, the romance writers field, it's always about, sex and love and da 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 da, and that's passion. But we can have passion in many different ways. And, I remember throughout my life that anytime I would talk about writing, people are like, well, this is something you're passionate about. You just light up. And I think that is the one thing that if you can step back in your life and look around and go, what fulfills me? It could be gardening, it could be cooking, it could be making that perfect sourdough loaf. But you have to find that passion to try to weigh out some of the heaviness of the world right now. Because if you get sucked into what's going on in the world in general, well, you could lose yourself. And you have to find something that's going to make you happy? And what are those questions that you can ask that will lead you to that passion? You know, did you love to paint? Did you love to create when you were a kid? Did you love to draw? And I'm not talking about an adult coloring book. I'm talking about getting some crayons and getting a coloring book and go color or sheet of paper and draw. If somebody told you a long time ago, you can't sing, you can't color, you can't do this, you can't do that, why is that? Find a way to embrace that passion because look, Pete made a career out of it. 30 years with the Dandy Warhols. And when he started, sure, he started playing as a younger person. But when things came to connect, to find that right place, things took off. And that's the thing you have to consider that maybe you start something as a hobby. Maybe you start something as, you're creating something on the side. Well, what if that were to turn into something that can give you a different life? And I'm not saying fame and fortune, but enough to carry you through to make you happy. Sometimes we think we need all the trappings of everything. And yes, we need to have our rent paid. We need to have or our mortgage paid. We need to have our car paid if we have a car note. We have to have food on the table. We have to have a roof over our head. But do we need the rest of the trappings? Do we have to have all the stuff that maybe isn't needed? Do we have to look at the world in a different light and say, hey, maybe gardening is a nice thing to do? I can grow my own food. I get to work in the soil. I get to ground myself by doing this because that is a gift. Just like the energy he gets when he's up on stage and what you get when you're down there listening to the band. There's that energy transfer, and it's something that we don't talk about. But even gardening, when you're working in nature, it's the same thing. So find something that you're passionate about and embrace it. Embrace it and see where it goes. Because no matter what, it's going to fill up your soul. So, on that note, I'd like to thank Pete for coming on. I'd like to thank Rich Zai from Third Ear Audio Productions for doing the sound. I'd like to thank Fast Susie for the intro and outro music. And most importantly, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Because no matter when you're listening, morning, noon, or night, I really do appreciate it. So until then, I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye.